In this lecture, we will discuss the oral cavity cancer, that is the squamous cell carcinoma of the oral cavity. From the anatomy point of view, the oral cavity can be subdivided into different subsides. These are the buccal mucosa. Second is the upper alveolus and gingiva, lower alveolus and gingiva, hard palate, tongue, anterior two-third, having dorsal surface and lateral borders right and left, and floor of mouth. The buccal mucosa is further consists of mucosal surfaces of the upper and lower lips, mucosal surfaces of the cheeks, retromolar areas, and buccoalveolar sulci, upper and lower. This figure is indicating different subsides of the oral cavity. Site incidence of oral cavity cancer. The different subsides are tongue. On the tongue, the incidence of carcinoma is 40%. Floor of mouth, 25%. Lower alveolus, the incidence is 15%. Buccal mucosa, 10%. Upper alveolus, 5%. Hard palate, 3%. Retromolar, 2%. And in this way, the total incidence becomes 100% in the oral mucosa, in the oral cavity. On the tongue, which constitutes around about 40% of the total carcinoma of the oral cavity. On the tongue, the lateral border, the incidence is 85%, ventral surface 11%. On the tip of the tongue, the incidence is 2%, and on the dorsum of the tongue, the incidence is again 2%. If we consider the floor of mouth, the anterior part of the floor of mouth is more commonly affected, that is 80% of the cases. And lateral part of the floor of mouth showing 20% of the incidence. Etiology, the risk factors responsible for oral cavity cancer. Number one is the pre-malignant lesions. There are certain pre-cancer lesions which may lead to cancer formation. These are leukoplakia, erythroplakia, and erythroleukoplakia, which already have been discussed in the previous lecture. Similarly, there are certain precancerous conditions such as submucous fibrosis, actinic keratosis, lichen planus, and discoid lupus erythematosus. These precancer conditions may also sometimes lead to oral cavity cancer development. Second important risk factor is the tobacco. Tobacco consumption in any form, in the form of betel quid, in the form of naswar, it may lead to cancer formation in the oral cavity. Similarly, thus tobacco may be used by the patient in cigars or factory-made cigarettes. Tobacco contains nicotine, which is actually a nitrosamine, and it also contains other polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons which act as carcinogens in the oral cavity to develop the oral cancer. Third important risk factor is the alcohol. This is the second major important risk factor causing oral cavity formation. This alcohol is especially associated with the cancer of the floor of mouth and tongue. Alcohol consumption in any form, for example, hard liquor wine, beer, these will raise the risk status of the oral cancer. Actually, alcohol potentiates the effects of tobacco carcinogens by different mechanisms. For example, by dehydrating the effects of alcohol on the mucosa, by increasing the mucosal permeability, by causing irritation of the mucosa of the oral cavity, and also it acts as a solvent for different carcinogens present in the tobacco. Diet and nutrition. Deficiency of certain dietary nutrients, for example, vitamin C, vitamin E, and vitamin A, they are linked to oral cancer. So, adequate consumption of raw vegetables and fruits gives rise to a low risk for oral and pharyngeal cancer. The deficiency of these nutrients will lead to atrophy of the oral mucous membrane, which, and in this way, this will render the patient to have susceptibility to carcinogens. Fungal infection, especially the Candida albicans, has been implicated in the oral squamous cell carcinoma. This fungal infection is more commonly found in oral and red and white patches with malignant potentials. Viral infections are also associated with oral cavity and other forms of cancer, especially the human papillomavirus type 16 and 18. And similarly, Epstein-Barr virus is also has been seen to be linked with nasopharyngeal carcinoma. There are certain habits of the human beings which are associated with oral cavity cancer formation. For example, chewing of betel quid and areca nuts, especially when these two are mixed with tobacco, they will increase the risk for developing oral cancer. Areca nut has also been associated with submucous fibrosis as well. Use of clay pipe has been associated with lip cancer. Chronic irritation. Chronic irritation may be due to chronic trauma, in addition to other carcinogens, may promote the transformation of epithelial cells into malignant ones. Similarly, chronic irritation due to dental calculus, ill-fitting dentures, and jagged edges of the restorations may play a role in localizing the site of tumor development. In this way, the oral cavity cancer may be due to these chronic irritations. Immune deficiency or suppression of the immune system of the patient. This may induce or sometimes as a result of HIV infection, they may render the patients to oncogenic viruses which lead to oral cavity formation. However, the exact mechanism is not known. There are certain occupations which may be linked with the risk of oral cavity cancer, although it plays a minor part. When the patient is exposed to certain occupations, he may be associated and it may lead to oropharyngeal and laryngeal cancer and sometimes oral cavity cancer as well. For example, cement, coal products, wood dust, organic chemicals, nickel dust. All these may be related with cancer in the oral cavity or with cancer in the oropharynx and larynx. Similarly, occupational exposure to ultraviolet rays from sunlight has been associated with cancer of the lips. Ultraviolet light, it may promote basal cell carcinoma of the skin, carcinoma of the vermilion border of the lips, especially in people with outdoor occupation, and it has been seen that it will affect the male sex more as compared to the females because Males are more exposed to the ultraviolet light during working hours. Pathology. Grossly, the carcinoma of the oral cavity may present as exophytic fungating growth in the oral cavity. Sometimes it may be presented as ulcerative growth, or sometimes, in rare cases, in the form of infiltrative growth. But as a general rule, majority of the cancers show more than one of these characteristics. In the oral cavity, many of the growths are both ulcerative and infiltrative, while exophytic growths are less common as compared to the ulcerative and infiltrative growths. Management of oral cavity cancer. This is done by history, physical examination of the lesion, investigations, and treatment. History. History depends on site of the tumor and will be discussed later on. Physical examination. Inspection of the oral cavity very carefully, preferably with the help of two tongue depressors. Secondly, palpation of the tumor to ascertain its extent and depth. Third parameter in physical examination is the palpation of the neck lymph nodes. The last one is systemic examination of the patient for distant metastasis. Investigations. Apart from routine investigations, the other investigations should be performed to rule out the possibility of some contraindication for general anesthesia. For example, blood urea, blood sugar, serum creatinine, electrocardiography, X-rays, chest PA view for cardiopulmonary status and pulmonary metastasis, and lab tests are done for syphilis and AIDS if these diseases are suspected after counseling the patient. Then radiological investigations, they are very, very important in the form of OPG, that is the orthopantomogram. This OPG is done to assess the state of dentition, to assess the position of the mental foramen, to assess the mandibular invasion. Then CT scan of the head and neck to show the site, size, extent, and depth of the primary tumor. Secondly, to assess the neck. Then magnetic resonance imaging, MRI of the head and neck. Again, this will help to gain the information as we gain information in CT scan. Then ultrasonography of abdomen, especially for the liver metastasis. Then the last but not the least investigation is biopsy and histopathology of the tumor. This is done, number one, to confirm the diagnosis, to know the type of histology of the tumor, that is whether it is squamous cell carcinoma, it is a sarcoma, lymphoma, or some salivary gland malignancy, etc. Treatment. Treatment of oral cavity cancer will be decided on the following parameters: site of the tumor, size of the tumor, extent of the tumor, depth of the tumor, type of histology of the tumor, whether it is squamous cell carcinoma or whether it's adenocarcinoma or something else, then status of neck lymph node, then distant metastasis to the liver, lungs, bones, and brain. So the treatment will depend on all these parameters. Once these are ascertained accordingly, then the treatment plan will be made and the patient cancer, especially in the oral cavity, will be dealt. Prognostic factors. The patient will have good prognosis if the tumor size is less than 2 centimeters, if the depth of infiltration is less than 5 millimeters, and if the site of the tumor is lip, the patient will have good prognosis. If the oral cavity cancer will be having good prognosis as compared to the oropharynx. Then the status of the lymph nodes. Presence of clinically positive or fixed lymph nodes gives worse prognosis. Now in this photograph you can see a tumor which is 2 millimeter or less, it will, and it is limited to the mucosa only. Then the second type of the tumor is that one which is having greater size, that is 3 to 8 millimeter, which will involve the mucosa and submucosa. And the third variety of that tumor which is having more thickness, that is more than 8 millimeter, it has involved the mucosa and submucosa. In all these three types of size, three different sized tumors, the risk of occult nodal metastasis will be 7% only if the tumor is having thickness 2 millimeter or less. This incidence is increased to 26 centimeter, 26%, sorry, rather, in a case of if the tumor size is 3 to 8 millimeter. Whereas this incidence of risk of occult nodal metastasis increased to 41% when the tumor's thickness increases more to more than 8 millimeter. Similarly, overall incidence of nodal metastasis will be increased to 13 centimeter in the first case, 46% in the second case, and the overall incidence of nodal metastasis will be increased to 65% if the tumor size is more than 8 millimeter. Similarly, as far as the prognosis is concerned, the 3% patient will die when the size is 2 millimeter or less. The incidence of death of the patient is increased to 17% when the size is 3 to 8 millimeter. And if the size is more than 8 millimeter, then the patient's chances of death increased to 35%. Now first we will discuss in details the carcinoma of the oral cavity, oral tongue. Oral tongue is the commonest site of oral cancer, which is around about 40%, as I have already said. Carcinoma of the anterior two-thirds of the tongue is commonly seen in males as compared to the females, and it is seen that majority of the age group is 50 to 70 years. The younger age group and the females may also be affected by the oral tongue cancer. This cancer may also develop on a pre-existing leukoplakia, long-standing dental ulcer, or spherotic cholecystitis. Vast majority of the cases belong to squamous cell carcinoma, as I have already told in the last lecture. Around about 95 to 98% of the cases, they are squamous cell carcinoma in the oral cavity. Site incidence of oral tongue cancer. As I already have told, out of oral cavity cancer, the incidence of oral tongue cancer is 40%. On the oral tongue itself, the lateral border is involved in 85% of the cases, ventral surface 11%, dorsum 2%, and tip of tongue is involved in, again, in 2%. So it is evident from this incidence, most common site is the lateral border and ventral surface of the oral tongue. This is the photograph showing you different sites of tongue cancer. As you can see, lateral border is the commonest site. Spread of the local cancer, local tumor on the tongue may be, number one, local spread by tissue continuity, or it may spread through the lymphatics to the lymph node, or sometimes it may spread to distant organs of the body through the blood-borne spread. That is It may spread to the lungs, liver, bones, and brain. Clinical features of the oral tongue cancer. An exophytic growth, a non-healing ulcer with rolled edges, or submucous nodule with induration of the surrounding tissues. This is the most common presentation. If the lesion is early one, it may remain painless and asymptomatic for a long time. Sometimes the patient may have local pain in the ulcer, which is present on the tongue. It may cause dysphagia or sometimes udinophagia even. Sometimes the patient may have referred pain in the ear, and sometimes in advanced stages, the patient may be having bad smell from the oral cavity, that is the fetal OS. Difficulty in protruding tongue may be seen. Slurred speech may be seen in these patients. Bleeding from the mouth may sometimes occur from the ulcer. Cervical lymph node metastasis may be sometimes the only feature to draw attention while the primary tumor of the tongue is still asymptomatic. Sometimes the patient may have one or more than one feature which have been discussed. Then investigations. Investigations, as I have discussed already in the in this lecture, all these may be ordered to locate the site, extent, depth, and tissue biopsy for histopathology. All these already have been discussed earlier. Treatment. It depends upon certain parameters, which already I have discussed. If the lesion is early lesion without lymph node metastasis, then wedge resection of the growth with safe march, that is 5 to 10 millimeter in length, 5 to 10 millimeter in width, and 5 to 10 millimeter in depth. And then after wedge resection of the tumor, primary closure is performed. Or secondly, if the if there is any sort of contraindication, or if the lesion is early, then radiotherapy will also may be curative in these cases. Radiotherapy in the form of external beam radiotherapy, or it may be in the form of interstitial radiotherapy, in which the radium needles may be implanted in the lesion, which will cause death of the malignant cells. If the lesion is a larger one, then hemiglossectomy may be performed. If there is lymph node metastasis, then along with hemiglossectomy, the surgeon will perform radical neck dissection as well. The third option of treatment is combination therapy for advanced lesions in order to improve the survival rate. It consists of preoperative chemotherapy, hemiglossectomy or subtotal glossectomy, and post-operative radiotherapy. Then second important is the carcinoma of the buccal mucosa. Again, in this case, squamous cell carcinoma is the most common. Its incidence is about 10% out of the oral cavity cancer. Male to female ratio is equal. Etiology is the same as we already have discussed. Commonest site of origin is the buccal sulcus, where pan or tobacco quid is kept. Grossly, the growth is exophytic, ulcerative, or infiltrative one. Spread is local spread. Buccal carcinoma may spread anteriorly to the tip and angle of the mouth. It may penetrate deeply and present on the skin of the cheek. Posterior extension of the tumor may involve the area of retromolar trigone and or trigone muscles, causing trismus, and the jawbones, especially the mandible. Second spread is the lymphatic spread to the submandibular lymph nodes and upper deep cervical lymph nodes. The third spread is the blood-borne spread to the lungs, liver, bones, and brain. Clinical features. These depend upon the extent of the disease. If the lesion is early, it may remain asymptomatic for a long time. A growth on the buccal aspect of the cheek may be noticed by the patient. The lesion may be exophytic, ulcerative, or sometimes it may be infiltrated. A swelling in the neck due to lymph node metastasis may be seen in these patients in the neck. If the lesion is late, then the clinical feature will be growth. There will be pain in the growth, foul smell from the mouth, trismus, swelling in the neck due to lymph node metastasis. Investigations are as we already have discussed. Now this is the photograph showing an exophytic growth on the cheek mucosa or the buccal mucosa. Treatment, it will depend upon site, extent and depth of the lesion. If the lesion is small one, an early one, then localized and it is localized to the mucosa without lymph node swelling, then radiotherapy or surgical excision of the lesion with safe margin, that is 5 to 10 millimeter safe margin all around and in depth. This will good. This will give good results. If the lesion is more extensive, which infiltrate the skin, jaw bones, and pterygoid muscles with lymph node metastasis, in this case, then we will perform full thickness excision of the cheek, excision of the bone involved, mandible or maxilla, and followed by radical neck dissection. Then repair of the defect with grafts or grafts according to the loss of the tissue. The third important site in the oral cavity is the floor of mouth. So carcinoma of the floor of mouth, this is again a very important site and it is the second common site for oral cancer next to tongue. The incidence being 25% out of the oral cavity cancer. 80% arise in the anterior part of the floor of mouth while 20% arise in the posterior part. Squamous cell carcinoma is again the commonest variety of cancer occurring in the floor of mouth. It affects the males more than as compared to females in the ratio of 4 to 1. Typically, the lesion starts anterior near the opening of submandibular duct, which may become obstructed leading to enlargement of the submandibular gland. Grossly, it may be exophytic, ulcerative, or infiltrative growth. Spread is again local spread, lymphatic spread, and lastly the blood-borne spread. Local spread is through the tissue continuity, and the lesion may spread to the adjoining area, such as ventral aspect of the tongue, lingual gingiva, mandibular, periosteum, posterior part or deeper part of the floor of mouth, and submental space. Lymphatic spread is to the submandibular lymph nodes. Blood-borne spread is to the lungs, liver, bones, and brain. As far as the clinical features are concerned, this lesion, that is the lesion in the floor of mouth, may remain asymptomatic. Sometimes the patient presents with growth which may be exophytic, ulcerative, or infiltrated. Sometimes the patient may be having soreness in the mouth, slurred speech, foul smell from the mouth, dysphagia, lymph node swelling in the neck. This photograph is showing a growth in the anterior part of the floor of mouth, in the region of the opening of the submandibular, close to the submandibular duct. Investigations already mentioned. Treatment. If the lesion is small one, without involvement of the tongue, lingual gingiva, lymph node metastasis, then surgical excision followed by repair, or you can offer the patient radiotherapy as well. If the lesion is large one with extension to the tongue, gingiva, or mandible, then wide surgical excision with safe margin followed by a plastic repair of the defect according to the type of the tissue loss, plus post-operative radiotherapy to improve the survival rate. If cervical lymph nodes metastases are seen, then radical neck dissection is also offered to the patient. Thank you very much.